Here's how to deal with difficult students in an ESL or EFL classroom. The first idea I have is just to talk to the student. So you can either do this kind of just maybe after class or just kind of take them outside of class for a minute and just say, what's going on? How come you're not listening? Or like, you seem really unhappy in my class. What's up? And if you teach ESL, it depends on the level of the students. Maybe they can answer you and understand that. Maybe they can't. If they can't, then you can kind of just enlist some help, maybe some admin person or a co-teacher, something like that. But just have a little chat with a student. And I often start it off with kind of like, you seem unhappy in my class. What's wrong? Or what can I do to make it better? And students will often just think, oh, she actually cares and she understands, she wants to know what's happening. And after that, I find the students often are not such a problem once you have that kind of friendly, nice conversation with them. The second thing you can do is to give problem students some extra tasks. So I don't mean like in a burdensome way, but if someone has to hand out worksheets, hand back worksheets, do attendance, clean the whiteboard off, I would often give those tasks to the problem students so they can kind of feel useful and can kind of just have something else to focus on besides their bad behavior in your class. The third thing is to really consider whether you have boring lessons. I mean, some students are going to misbehave no matter what kind of lesson you have, but if you have a lot of students misbehaving, it might be because your lessons are kind of boring and not that relevant to the needs or the interests of the students in your class. So really examine that and answer that question honestly. Are my lessons boring? The fourth thing you can do to deal with difficult students is to enlist some help. So if you're really, really struggling and you've kind of tried all the other strategies that I'll mention in this video, but it's not really working and some student just keeps misbehaving and misbehaving, you can enlist some help. Maybe ask a co-teacher or the principal at your school just to kind of find out what's going on with the students. And just one thing to keep in mind is that it often has nothing to do with you. Maybe if you have a teenager and their parents are getting divorced or they just broke up with their girlfriend or they're being bullied at their other school, something like that, and they're misbehaving in your class, that really has nothing to do with you. So it can be helpful to kind of have some background knowledge or information about what's happening with that student, just to have some empathy or some patience or just a little bit of extra love for that student who might really be struggling. The next tip is to think about seating location. So if you have one student who's misbehaving in your class, I often will just put them right in front of me in the front row and I will make them sit there the entire class, the entire semester. Students don't really love it, but I find that it kind of turns the problem person into often quite a good student, and I'll call on them, I'll ask them for help handing out papers and that kind of thing. So that's just a nice kind of like low confrontational way to deal with a very difficult student. If you have lots of students who are creating problems, I would make a seating chart in that class. So kind of just mix it up. If you have, say, 4 problem students, put one left, right, and just kind of separate them, and there will be less problems in your class. The next tip for dealing with difficult students is just to move on. So, I mean, it's not always helpful to pick a battle about every single thing. So if a student is misbehaving, you can ignore some things and just kind of move on and not worry about it too much. I would only really pay attention to the big problems. For example, talking over another student, hitting, fighting, just really bad things, kind of the more moderately bad things or small bad things. If there's a lot going on in the class, just ignore those things and instead focus on the positive things that other students are doing and focus on that instead of with that difficult student. The next thing you can do is literally stand next to the difficult student. If they're misbehaving, standing next to that student and I always put my hand, not on them, I don't like to touch my students, but I like to put my hand kind of on their desk or just kind of on their paper. And I just kind of stand there and while everyone's doing some quiet work. If you're standing next to that student, I guarantee that they are going to be doing the work as well. And if you see them kind of start to misbehave or something happening, just go stand next to them, and that can often prevent a lot of problems. The next thing you can do is to call on that student who's causing a problem. So if students are doing some kind of pair or group work and then you're kind of just rounding off the activity and you want to elicit some answers, choose the problem students in your class. That will help them focus, they'll pay attention, and hopefully they will give kind of a good answer and you can give them some praise and encouragement and they can kind of get some feedback about something positive that they're doing in your class instead of something negative. The next thing is to have low expectations. So I mean, you're in an ESL class, maybe in another country, maybe you only see the students once a week or once every 2 weeks, maybe you have 40 students in your class, whatever the case might be. Expecting miracles in terms of like everyone behaving perfectly and listening to you, it might be a bit of a stretch. If students don't really know you and don't see you that much, they don't really have a lot of respect for you. And that's okay, it's no problem. You can still teach students effectively, but you're not their homeroom teacher and they don't have this love for you. They don't necessarily have this respect. So just kind of lower your expectations and just chill out a little bit. And that leads me to the final thing, which I briefly mentioned before. Don't take things personally. Students have a lot going on. Their misbehavior may not have anything to do with you. So just don't worry about it. Let it slide off your back. Don't let it affect you or get you down. Just go into class, the next class, with a smile on your face and just try to have a fresh start for everyone. And just because someone misbehaved in a previous class doesn't mean that they're going to misbehave in the next class. So a fresh start and don't think too deeply about it. Don't worry too much about it. Just let it go. Okay, so those are my tips for how to deal with difficult students. If you like these ideas, please be sure to check out my book, ESL, EFL Teaching Practice and Methodology. And please hit like, subscribe, and I hope you have classes filled with angelic students.